Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have another great show for you today. Assistant Professor in Economics Clara Mate joins us to discuss her new book, The Capital Order.
And Batya Ungar-Sargon and Amisha Cross discuss the impact of crime across the country with Professor of Political Science at Rutgers University, Lisa Miller. But first, the developer behind the video game Fortnite will pay the Federal Trade Commission $520 million. According to the FTC, Epic Games is paying a $275 million penalty for violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act and another $245 million for tricking players into paying for unwanted services and letting children rack up unauthorized charges without parental consent.
This settlement is the largest civil penalty awarded for children privacy violations. In addition to the fine, Epic Games will adopt new default privacy settings. And Epic Games put out a statement basically kind of rolling with this decision, taking it in stride and saying what they're going to do to better protect children's privacy in the future. People hear the words children and privacy, and in the context we're talking about, I think, go crazy and like, oh my God, what were they doing? Were they recording children or something without their consent? I'm a little bit skeptical of the government's position on all this. So Fortnite, I don't know if you've played it before. I have not.
Tell me.
Fortnite is like a battle royale online multiplayer game. So you play these like fights with a bunch of other people.
Okay.
And it's not particularly like gory or graphic or anything. It's kind of more cartoony, silly. So if you're eliminated, you could be eliminated immediately. You could win, and it takes like 25 minutes or something. It's free. You can also you can pay. So it's like some of those apps, you know, on some of the games you can play on your phone. It's free, but if you want special perks, you can pay for them or special features,
like weapons or equipment
stuff
or
like
healing
that.
powers.
Loot boxes. Yeah,
Okay.
That's what they call them. So you can do that. And some people think there's something wrong with that, I guess. I don't understand. They think it's addictive or akin to gambling. Like Josh Hawley type people think this is the most evil thing. You know, kind of like nanny state people, whom I'm not super on board with, are really outraged about all of this.
You know, it's a tale as old as time, the idea that video games are ruining our children and corrupting them. I mean, they've been saying this since the 90s.
Maybe they're teaching our children better battle royale survival skills.
Robby, you certainly need it these days with what's going on in some of the segments we've recorded lately. But what do you make of this? I mean, the FTC cites some other kinds of issues, including that users could be charged while attempting to wake the game from sleep while the game was loading in a loading screen, or by pressing an adjacent button while attempting to simply preview an item. So what they're saying is that there have been a bunch of unintended purchases, not just that a parent might not want their kid to spend all of the parent's money, but that even the kid themselves isn't always intending to make these purchases. But the way the apps are designed, it makes it easy to make a mistake. What do you make of that?
I don't know enough to kind of weigh in on that. But again, you have to give your kid a credit card to let them do this. Like, better parenting, you can't put it all on everyone else. You can't put it on the law or the state or companies.
Well, Robby,
be more responsible. Like, some of these kids, they're like, oh my God, they racked up these massive charges because they were playing until 3 a.m. every day for weeks. Like, you know what? If you let your kids do that, that's on you.
Well, apparently,
that's bad parenting.
Until 2018, the FTC says that Epic Games let children purchase Fortnite's products in-game currency, V-Bucks, without the consent of their parents or the credit card holder. So you can buy it in-app without necessarily using a real...
But you need a credit card to purchase the V-Bucks.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, it's I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I could be wrong on that. But you need to you convert real money into the fake game currency. That's how Nintendo stuff works. If you're buying
tokens out of...
Yeah. So that's fine that you can make once you've already done the conversion. Or I guess maybe it goes the other way. Maybe you can get as many tokens as you want for free, but then once you're actually getting to the purchase point using the tokens, it charges you. I don't know. I just think parents have to take some responsibility here. Look, I would have played video games until 3 a.m. every night when I was a kid if I was allowed to, but my mother said I wasn't allowed to. It's that simple, people. Like, don't ask the state to be in charge of your kids. Like, take some responsibility.
Well, there have been a number of other...
Or don't give them access to these things. That's fine.
There have been a number of other concerns and allegations, including the idea that the default setting is apparently for these text and voice communications options within the game so that different players can write messages to and talk to each other are defaulted as being open, which opens kids up to bullying and harassment. I presume you also think that that's a perfectly fine default as opposed to switching to defaulting to those things being turned off.
And as long as you can change it, who cares what the default is? Probably the way people want it. If people didn't want it that way, they would probably change it. Like they don't. If having the default be everyone bullies each other and harasses each other is the way it is, and that sounds really bad and toxic, it makes people not want to play the game. Probably that's not the way they would have it.
I mean, look, I appreciate that perspective. There is an argument that says, well, if it's just a default, why not default to opting out rather than opting in? It still preserves the same amount of choice.
Some of this is healthy. Obviously, my perspective is very pro video games compared to, I guess, like other people broadly speaking on the right these days. But so much of what was said about video games in the past just turned out to be absolute paranoia. That was baseless paranoia. The idea that video games would make kids violent didn't pan out at all. Honestly, for young men, video games can have a very social and stabilizing effect for kids who have trouble making friends and having social connections and don't want to participate in activities. A lot of these video games are fairly sophisticated, are very narrative, have sort of literary components, include a lot of necessary reading, and then are collaborative and consensus building and team building. Yes, sometimes they make kids crazy and they're too competitive, but you can have nasty competition in sports and in anything.
I mean, look, I do think that these things can be breeding grounds for all kind of bad behavior in the way that any cultural product can serve to amplify the problems that are already ongoing in society. So I don't want to be indifferent to the fact that there have been, accusations that, political parties have exploited what's going on in these games and various kind of movements that are not necessarily adaptive, constructive movements have tried to onboard people into various ideologies through these games. There has been a lot of, racism and harassment because of the anonymity of the games that has been targeted to historically marginalized groups. I'm not going to pretend that didn't exist, but I do think oftentimes we have legitimate concerns about what's going on in society and try to address them through these cultural products like video games instead of dealing with the underlying question. Mm-hmm. And I do think that you're right about the social aspect of these games, which I think often goes overlooked. I know I had a friend recently who said, I finally caved and bought an Xbox or whatever because I haven't been speaking to my brother enough. I want to communicate with my brother. And we used to talk all the time when we used to play the video game together. And I was also recently introduced to this game called It Takes Two. Are you familiar with this?
No.
It's like a relationship game where you play like a husband and wife who are on the rocks about to get a divorce. And you have a young child who kind of prays that the mom and dad will stay together, and her tears fall on a doll and you become the animated doll, and you and your partner have to work through a bunch of trials and tribulations to get back to your kid. And in so doing, you mend your relationship. It's the goal. So you don't have to play with a partner, but a lot of people have been. It's like a kind of a soft.
I'm playing a lot of a game called Wingspan right now. It's about birds. Just about birds. Nothing more to it.
Do you fly the bird?
No, it's a sophisticated strategy game. Just birds are the flavor of it. But actually, it's the holidays right now, so I'm expected to be playing a lot of Super Smash Brothers with my nieces and nephews. My nephew's finally hitting the age at which they're competitive enough. Not as good as I am, of course.
Okay.
But they're getting a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, look, it's a family activity. Cut video games some slack.
Yeah.
They're not the root of all evil.
I'm glad we have a lot of consensus on this issue.
I'm pro-game. I'm pro-gamer. I'm also probably more pro the FTC forcing these unwitting payments to be returned back to these families than you are.
Fine.
But other than that, I think the gameplay is still good.
All right. Well, we'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.